Ah, there we are. That took a minute. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 22nd. Welcome back to Traveling Bible Study Group. So we took 45 days off. I was only planning to take off March, but then April just kind of slipped by as I was putting together the class that we're starting today. Um, I want you to understand a few things, and so today's the introductory meeting, and then next Wednesday we'll be sending some attachments and some things for you to start reading and working on. So I wanted to just kind of describe what we're doing. Um, so as you know, in this class we've studied Daniel and Ezekiel and Zechariah and Revelation, right? Those are the books that we've covered thus far. And for the most part, in each of those cases, we've used a book written either by Amir Sarfati or, oh, shoot. I don't remember his name, who wrote Zechariah. Sorry, I should have looked. Um, each of these books, of course, are sort of the foundational books of the Bible regarding prophecy, things that have occurred, things that are still yet to occur, and what's happened over the last 2-3 years that we've been doing this is we've studied the books of the Bible that had to do with prophecy, but what we really haven't done, and the authors, Amir does a great job, of course, um, but but what we really haven't done is really sort of laid out the whole, if you will, prophetic picture. And so as I was thinking about it and praying about it, what should we do next? Which book of the Bible should we do next? God really laid in my heart, and so I started this back in December of 25. He laid on my heart to do what I ended up calling Unfulfilled Prophecies of the Bible. And that's the class that we're just launching. I don't have a book to give you to do all this. I have books, plural, that I use as resource materials, and of course I have the book, right, the Bible. So what I've done is put together over the last several months a prophetic summary of the various teachings that we've gone through in the various books of the Bible, and even some that we haven't studied yet, that lay out what are the major prophecies of the Bible that are still yet to be fulfilled. And that was quite the journey. I'll be honest. It was a lot of research. In fact, I just got a new resource yesterday, and I'm going through it to make sure everything's lined up. And so, what this class is going to be is an outline that I'm going to send you either later this week or first part of next week before Wednesday's class. The outline is really the summary that takes us through sort of the major categories. And then as we go through the different topics, I will provide supplemental attachments on various topics. And then I'll also provide you, as time goes by, all of the Bible verses associated with the topic that we're talking about. And so you'll not only have sort of this summary outline, you'll have attachments about details covering these topics, and then you'll have the references to the actual Bible there. And what I've done is not just put the reference, but I've cut and paste, if you will, the actual verses that apply to the prophecies that we're going to be summarizing. And of course, they span the entire Bible, everything from Genesis to Revelation, right? And my goal is then to have these two principal documents, the summary and then the Bible verses, tied together with then all the other attachments based upon specific topics. Um, I've started but have not finished a timeline. Now, Some of you might go, "Oh my gosh, she's going to try to talk about timing." No, I'm. No one knows the hour, right? I'm not date setting. I'm not timeline setting. However, I do know there is a fair amount of confusion about sort of what happens when. And it's been interesting because even people that are pretty well studied on this can get themselves confused about certain timings. The Bible's very good about helping us understand when something's in a certain sequence or when something has to happen before something else. However, there are a batch of prophecies for which there really isn't a timeline. The Bible may not associate any kind of a timeline, or, for example, in the case of the rapture, the Bible, Jesus, was very clear that you won't know the timeline. You may know the season, but you won't know the day or the hour. I come as a thief in the night. And so the Bible's very good about sort of helping us understand the sequence. But people still get confused about things. Now, with all of that said, and as much as I honor and respect many of the prophecy pastors that I read and watch and gather and do my own research um, and read and study it in the Bible, the truth is there's not always 100% agreement on certain issues, certain topics. I'm going to do my best to try to help you understand as we go through the different unfulfilled prophecies where there might be a disagreement. But then I'm also going to be clear and say, based upon my study or based upon, this or that, I'm going to present to you this idea, right? And I'll give you an example today. On the topic of the rapture, oh my gosh, we could spend, a long time. But let me give you two principled ideas. Idea number one on the rapture is that there are people that absolutely believe the rapture is there. It's in the Bible. While the word rapture, it's harpazo, right? Is the word that they use, isn't there. Neither is the word Trinity. Trinity is not in the Bible, but clearly there's a Trinity, right? So there are people that believe that the rapture is absolute, that it's there, it's talked about, Jesus talked about, Paul talked about it, right? Lots of accounts of the rapture. Then there are some that don't believe in the rapture of all. Now, I would generally tell you those that are born again believers in Jesus Christ that really have any clear vision and study of Bible prophecy and look at it legitimately tend to be affirmed in the idea that the rapture is real, that it is in the Bible. It's been talked about, it's been discussed since the first century, and it's not a new thing. Okay. However, there's a group that profess to be Christians, not judging, only God knows the heart, who say, no, it was made up by this person and it's not real. And in fact, you can go a little bit farther out on what I would call cults, non-Christian cults, just being honest, that say, no, Jesus Christ is going to show up in Missouri. That's the Mormon one. You've got some that are saying, no, we have to be here on earth as Christians and make the world special and great and make it good enough, and then Jesus comes. Well, that's not what the Bible says. It may be what their off-branded book says, but it's not what the Bible says. So my point is you can take a subject like the rapture, and there's differing ideas about it, whether it is even real or not. So I will present the rapture and provide the case for you biblically of what it is, how does it come into play, what's it about. We're going to cover it. But I want you to know I'll also mention that there are other fringe or other ideas. Not to try to convince you of those. If you want to go research them, please do. But so that you're aware of them, so that when you're in a conversation or you're doing some study, if it comes up, you're not blindsided. The second component that I want to bring up about the rapture, again using that as the example, is there are about three different beliefs about the timing of the rapture. And when we get to that subject, I will provide you with here are the three beliefs. Here's what the pros and what the belief is and what is generally viewed. But I will tell you that generally speaking, without question, that I and many of the prophecy pastors that I follow and have researched believe in the pre-tribulation rapture. And so, for those that are what they call mid tribs or post tribs, I will explain what that is, but I'll be also clear with you that I'm going to present with more detail the thing that I believe is best documented in the Bible. Now, I'm just a man and a flawed one at that. I ask that you consider things carefully. I ask that you ponder what is important to you and that you do your own study. Don't let me, Amir, anybody, doesn't matter, um, take you away from really looking at what's actually in the Bible, because that's the authority, right? So come to your own conclusions. I will simply present to you as a man um, some things for you to, uh, that I believe, and here's why. But again, I leave to you in your relationship and in your prayer time with God to discuss and ponder and research those things to come to your own conclusion. Because it is absolutely not my intent to cause anybody to go astray or to have anything false about what they do or believe or think. So please, I am just rendering to you my best research, my best understanding, but I leave to you your own belief about it. And I'm going to give you one more example because this usually comes up in conversations. Um, Psalm 83 talks about a group of nations surrounding Israel that want to destroy Israel and remove the name of Israel, or I'm paraphrasing. In other words, that it would be no more. So not of any sort of territorial intent, but really to annihilate the Jews. There are some biblical scholars that believe that war is still to come. And you might say, well, Tony, yeah, I mean, look at what's going on in the Middle East right now. Yes. However, let me give you the other side. There are many, including Amir Sarfati, but I agree with Amir, that believe Psalm 83 has already taken place. And it took place back in 1967 and 48, 67, when the countries immediately surrounding Israel, Jordan, Egypt, right, them, Syria, Lebanon, tried to come after Israel with the intent of destroying what was then 1948 the new country of Israel birthed, or a little bit later in 67, during that war. And excuse me, guys, runny nose. And so I believe, Amir believes, that Jack Hibbs agrees, Andy Wood agrees, that that prophecy's already been fulfilled. What we're seeing now in the Middle East is not those countries right around Israel, but one removed. So it's not Jordan, Egypt, it's not Lebanon, it's not the ones touching Israel, but extended beyond that, which really takes us to one of the prophecies we'll talk about, which is Ezekiel 38 and 39. So for those that remember our Ezekiel study, we will talk about that as a prophecy. But I want you to know there are some things that I'll mention, but I will say it's my belief, my view of the research. Again, it's just my view, and I will provide you with again the biblical references that has passed. Okay, and so I'm not gonna go into a big long thing about Psalm 83 because this is a class about unfulfilled prophecies, not ones already filled. I hope that makes sense. Okay. The next thing that I want to address is what I would call major versus minor. there are obviously major prophecies, significant events that are spelled out in the Bible that we're going to cover in this class. But there are also sort of supporting cast members or minor prophecies that come along the way. I'll be honest and tell you, I didn't really spend any time on those minor things, um, because they're not all on their own. They're not highly prophetic in nature. I mean, there are things that have to happen, but they're not things that really stand out in the Bible. Um, but I will say that they are oftentimes very much table setting or preparations for the bigger thing that's going to happen. So now that I've sort of talked in this, let me give you an example. We know from our study of Revelation that the Jewish temple is constructed and functioning no later than the middle of the 7 year tribulation, 3.5 years in. We know, Bible tells us. Okay, so that means somewhere in the mix they had to start constructing, right, the temple. That means in order to construct the temple, they have to purify and sanctify the area according to the Old Testament, which requires them to sacrifice a perfectly unblemished, all red-haired heifer. They sacrifice this animal. I think it has to be like 3 years old, not a blemish on it, all red hair, rare thing, right? And they have to sacrifice it and use its ashes to sanctify the new temple. Okay, so a lot of people get really excited and do a lot of tracking about, oh my gosh, did you hear that they had 5 red heifers out in Texas and they've taken them to Israel and yes, yes. Do I get overly excited or up and down about that? No. I'm looking at the bigger prophetic things. Do I realize that God's going to have to provide a red heifer in advance? Yeah. But could he provide the red heifer? They sacrifice it and hold on to those ashes for a lot of years? Yeah. So while it is preemptive of something else, I don't spend a lot of time tracking heifers because I just don't think it's a huge prophetic thing. It's a little bit like there are people that do spend a lot of time tracking all the training and the fabrics and the dyes and the things that they use in order to make the priest robes for the Israel's third temple. All very important things, not making fun, but do I find them to be sort of significant bellwethers to some of the major prophetic things? No, to be honest, I don't. Okay? Because while I know they're real, I accept they're real, and I accept that they have to happen before something else happens, I don't find them to be a particularly compelling guidepost for, the next thing. So, what do I then spend my energy on? Well, I spend a little bit of energy watching what Turkey's doing. I'm very attentive to what's going on with Iran. I'm very attentive to what's going on with Russia because I know that's the main three characters that are going to come in to the coalition and try to attack Israel. And I think that's a pretty significant event that is in ish or around ish, right? The rapture of the church. I'm very attentive to how strong the anti Semitic actions are that are going on in Europe right now, watching what the European leaders are saying about Israel, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. Those are very indicative actions that have to happen because remember, as we studied previously, um, we know that from Zechariah that Israel will, in the end times, will become a cup of trembling, a concern, a problem for the world. And so we're seeing that now. We're seeing European leaders coming out and saying, oh my gosh, they've just genocide in Gaza and blah, 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 right? So those again are the sort of table setting things that I look at, and we'll cover some of those, especially the ones that Jesus talked about in Matthew 24 and some in 25 about what are the signs of the end. So I spend some time going through that, and we'll have again some handouts and some things like that. The goal for you in this class is to have a document, Lord willing, that you can refer to that then has all the Bible references to it, that maps out how is this happening? How is it taking place? How do these things fold in? What things do we know the timeline for? What things are totally independent that we don't know a timeline for? What are the things that we think they're kind of in this time frame, but sometimes, we don't know. I will do my best to let you know when I don't know or when I think I know. But again, I'm going to tell you, I'm just a man and only God knows, right? Fairly excited about this class because most of the time when people study Bible prophecy, they study it in sort of little vignettes of the book of Daniel or the book of Revelation. And those are super important books. They're the basis of what we're going to cover. But they don't really sort of pull it all together often and give it a span of understanding. And that's really my goal of this class. So I hope God's helped me to put it together right. Again, I'll be very honest and say you know, it's not an easy subject, and I've done my best, but God help me to point out and please be diligent. Right? Look at the references I've given you. Do your own research. If there's something I've said that you think is wrong or off or whacked, please holler out. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first guy to step up and say I'm wrong. So I'm happy to hear from you guys. Because we're only doing this Facebook Live, we're headed into our summer season here in our very warm Arizona. We aren't going to have a face to face class. So that sometimes is challenging because then I don't see your face. I don't know when you're like, what the heck is he talking about? So I guess what I'd ask is as you watch each one of our, our sessions, let me know. Give me feedback, please. Going too fast, going too slow. Hey, wait, what about this? What about that? There are obviously things that I've left out because, again, it's sort of majors versus minors. Um, and I tell you, every time I go through my draft, I see one more thing like, oh, wait, I got to get that in there. So it is a work in progress. I think the class is going to take us several months. I'll just be honest, because I want to give each a topic an appropriate snapshot of what we're going to do. So, as a bellwether of what we're doing next week, I will send you the the document. You can look for it. It is called the Major Prophetic Biblical Events Yet to Be Fulfilled Overview and Summary List. Ta-da! Right, nice short title. Um, it's we're going to slay a few trees on this class. I'm just telling you, or you can do it electronically. It's going to be about a 15-page document, but it's going to be sort of the outline that we use to go through, and then the attachment of the verses is I don't know. It's going to be 30 to 50 pages long. When the class is all done, I will bind it together as here's the finished product, because I'm hoping you guys will bring things forward that I will add or correct or supplement, and then I will bind that all together and have it posted so you guys have one definitive document that you can go through, give to people, friends, whatever you think is appropriate. And then, of course, the handouts will be additional supplements on specific topics, right? So that is really the essence of the class. We sent you an outline today of the class. It's our typical outline that we do. We've given you our email. We've given you some references of pastors that are outstanding in the area of Bible prophecy that we encourage you to consider. Um, of course, Amir Sarfati at Behold Israel is a fan favorite, if you will. Really like Andy Woods Ministries, Pastor Andy Woods out of Sugar Land in Texas. Very, very good. Jack Hibbs, like Jack. Jack does a good job. Jack's very easy to listen to. Um, I, I, um, I find Jack to be less technical in his knowledge than Amir or Andy Woods. Andy Woods is very technical in his knowledge, and so if you're looking for sort of the layperson's perspective, Jack is a nice listen. Amir and Andy though really they take you down to the bones of the situation and help you with it. Uh, Pastor Robert Jeffers out of Dallas. Again, very good pastor. I would put him a stake ahead of Jack Hibbs. He has the ability to go technical. He tends to do that in his writings more than in his sermons. And he's a prolific writer, as is Andy Woods and Amir, I guess, for that matter. But Dr. Jeffers has some wonderful written materials, okay? And then David Jeremiah does a very good job as well. And so all of those pastors and their web links and everything are there on the outline for you. And so that's what we're going to do is we're going to walk through, um, you know, the major topics. Just to kind of give you a flavor so that you understand is we're going to cover some basic things that I want you to make sure you have grounded. We'll do some of that next week. It'll probably take us 2-3 weeks, maybe 4, to get through some basic things, and then we'll get into some deeper specifics. But I want you to know that we're going to try to drive this conversation based upon time, and again, not by books of the Bible, but time, the time continuum. Okay, and so I want to just kind of give you a flavor. I've broken the topics into these categories so that you can sort of be mindful. Independent time event, meaning it Bible says it's going to happen, hasn't happened yet, but we don't have any clue as to when it's going to happen. The Bible may give us some tell of, of well, it's preceded by or it's followed by or that sort of thing, or it may make logical sense to say, well, it seems like this has to happen before some other prophetic event. But oftentimes in the independent category, the Bible either doesn't give us a timeline or, in fact, like the rapture, will specifically say you're not to know. It has a key of eminency to it. Okay, so that's category number one. Category number two is what I call our current time, which is pre-rapture, pre-tribulation, what's supposed to go on. Jesus Christ himself is the best indicator to us of pre-rapture, pre-tribulation things that we should be looking for. The next is the post-rapture, pre-tribulation. Rapture's taking place, tribulation hasn't started yet. That period of time is undefined in the Bible. There are many believe that it's weeks or months. There are some that believe that it's years. The Bible doesn't tell us, right? So that's a category. Then we have the tribulation itself. We know exactly when the tribulation starts. We'll cover that as far as what event or what takes place that starts the clock. And then we know it runs 7 years, and according to God, to the day, right? Culminating with the second coming of Jesus Christ. Then next category is post-tribulation, pre-millennium. There's an administrative period of 75 days the Bible talks about after the tribulation is done, where Jesus is going about and doing several things. And so we'll cover what we know about that in the Bible. And then we have the millennium, the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ, which also includes a restoration of King David in his role as king over the Jewish people. Very interesting. That 1,000-year reign will start. Um, Satan will be bound during that period. So we have that 1,000 years. Then there's a what we call the post-millennium, pre-eternity. There's some things that fall into that category, and then we have eternity. And we know some pictures of that. Bible and the tail end of Revelation gives us some ideas about eternity. So those are the categories. Again, sort of trying to give you a what we know or don't know, timing wise, and then stepping through the timeline, what kinds of things we're looking to fall into categories. Is it an absolute? Nope. Nope. I'll give you one. I'll give you one. The Bible, for example, in Revelation, will cover the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls, which, if you recall, are the judgments that God pours out on the earth during the tribulation. Okay. Well, John is very good about, and then this angel did this, and then this angel did that, and, the sequence. But could I sit here and swear to you that seal number one is ahead of seal number two? Can I swear to you that seal number one stops before seal number two is opened? I cannot. The Bible provides good, solid information, but it's not exhaustive in its tell, right, to us on certain things. For example, in Revelation, there are three what I call whistle stops in Revelation that are going along telling the story, and they go, oh, but wait, and they sort of take you back, right? Three times God in his story, Jesus in his story to John, is telling the story, oh, wait, and takes you back. I'm sure that's for a reason. I'm sure it's for a purpose. But could I tell you, well, that means that this thing happens here? The Bible doesn't tell us. Let me give you a great example. One of the whistle stops in Revelation is the anointing of the 144,000 Jewish men. Well, we know that happens. God says it. He says he's going to seal them. They're going to be sealed and protected from the Antichrist for a time and from the wrath. Okay, great. Totally get it. Believe it. But it's one of those whistle stops that refers back to a previous time. So did he do it right away? Did he do it before the first seal? We don't know, right? I think there's things that we can sort of go, well, he probably, or what I would imagine. You can have those kinds of conversations or those kinds of thoughts. I think they're great. I will try to be very clear when I'm sort of postulating an idea or, well, I wonder if. But please understand, I want to be super accurate about what we know versus what we don't know. And so we're very blessed that God has given us this roadmap, this understanding of what's to take place. And as Christians, born again Christians, believers in Jesus Christ, a lot of what I'm going to share with you, we will see some, and there's a lot we won't see. Well, experience. Let me be clear. Experience. We may see it. I don't know what the bleacher situation is up in heaven. I don't know if we're going to be able to watch it. I think in some ways it'd be interesting to watch, in other ways it'd be terribly sad to watch, especially if you have a full understanding of who's down there and relatives and friends and that kind of thing. But so it's hard to know what we'll know versus what we'll watch or see. But the truth is that there's a great number of things we're going to cover, which are highly interesting, very Bible, but based in the Bible, right? Factually laid out by God. But we're not going to be here, at least, to experience it. So, but I think it's important that we know it. I think it's important that we have it. And my goal, my heart, my intent is that this document can sort of live beyond the rapture, to be honest. That's my hope that God does that. so that it can exist in other places and have its usefulness um, well into the future. So that's a goal. Again, I leave that to God. I'm just simply a man trying to do the Father's will. So okay, so that's our chat for today. That's our summary of the class. Like I said, the outline will come, and then we'll get into it starting next week. We'll be doing Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for the most part. There may be occasionally scheduling things where I have to do it a little different time, but I'll probably just like get up early and do it before, or might try to keep Wednesdays. I guess is my point. And because it lives here on Facebook, hopefully you'll just be able to watch it at your convenience. The last point that I'll bring up is Kelly and I were using Odillo, and that has not worked out as well as we'd hoped. So I'm researching going on to YouTube. I know there's pros and cons of that, but that's where we're kind of looking to go with some of our recordings, so that they can be accessed after Facebook removes the videos. All right, well, that's our stuff for today. We love you all. We hope and pray that you're all doing well. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, um, especially if you give the outline and you see, well, what about this or what about that, shoot us a message either on Facebook or on our email, and I will absolutely do my best to give you some thoughts and response to your questions. All right, well, thank you so much. We love you all. Take care and have a blessed day. Bye bye.